All right, hello, welcome back to Unqualified Analysis, Super Bowl edition of Unqualified Analysis. Did I watch a single second of any festivities for the Pro Bowl? Absolutely not. But you know what? It was a good week off. We got some pizza on Saturday. This week's was solid. It was solid. I like this week's. Sensing a theme in my coworkers' recommendations. They like a very specific style of pizza. And, I think I'm going to go for a little bit different route this coming weekend. I think I've already got mine scoped out. Been hiding in plain sight, let's just say. But that's what's going on in my life. As far as this podcast, today we're going to get into some headlines. Then, of course, we're going to talk about Super Bowl. Put myself in a spot there. 59, that's the one. That's the one that we're at right now. 60 next year. Big year. Big year for the Super Bowl, turning 60. How about that? But yeah, we got ourselves a nice little episode here for you. And in the interest of time, I'm going to try to get through this in, say, an hour or so. Just to kind of keep things in check. Because at this rate, once again, I will be eating dinner probably around like 9:30, which is less than ideal. I don't necessarily want to do that, but that's where we're at. That's what happens when you get a nice workout after work and get back home late. It is what it is. It is what it is. Anyways, enough bloviating. I'm your host, Caleb. You can follow me on the socials at CalebVUA. That is bottom right-hand corner here. That's also down in the description. You could do either one. It's not a link right there. I've not gotten to the point where I'm putting a link, and by the time I'm editing this thing, I'm not trying to do anything extra there, for quite frankly. But maybe I shouldn't admit that. But hey, it is what it is. I'm a busy man during the day, so trying to get this banged out. But yeah, let's talk about some sports. You can go ahead and share this if you enjoy it. All the places with the friends, yada yada yada. Let's get into this thing, shall we? Okay, so starting off, we got ourselves some headlines here. So obviously, we're a football podcast here, and we're not going to talk about this too far or too long. But I'd be remiss if I did not mention Luka Doncic to the Lakers for Anthony Davis and a host of other players. I think one draft pick. Also, the Lakers got like Maxi Kleber, a couple other solid players, or at least one other solid player to go along with Luka Doncic. Makes next to zero sense to me, but okay, Luka Doncic is a Laker now, and Anthony Davis is on the Mavs. From the Mavs' point of view, I have no idea what Nico Harrison, the GM for the Dallas Mavericks, is doing right now. Apparently, there's some rumors that it's weight related, like he's up to 270 pounds. They're getting tired of his fitness issues. I think Ryan Russillo put this best. I think he had the best reaction to this on Bill Simmons' podcast. He said, and maybe not an exact quote, but you'll get the point here, Luka Doncic could be smoking cigarettes. Could have been smoking cigarettes, and I'd still offer him the Supermax. I agree with that 100%, man. That's the type of player. Defensively, not the best in the world. Let's not kid ourselves here. But as far as an offensive player, he's a one of one in the league right now. He is spectacular on the offensive side of the ball. Probably the most skilled offensive player in the entire league at the moment. Like a prime James Harden, but I'd say even better than James Harden as far as creating in the clutch time. Certainly playoff performances for sure. He is an absolutely special player, and you give that guy the Supermax. You don't ship him on his way because you got some issues with the weight or whatnot. You can figure all of that out. And I know in year 7, it's easier said than done. You might just be who you are after a certain point. Maybe he's on a Charles Barkley run. That could be fun. We need a thick white boy doing crossovers. I love Nikola Jokic. I really do. He makes people look like fools down in the post. Sometimes he does it off the dribble, too. He's a very skilled player. But there's something different about a white boy, a fat white boy guard, just cooking people. Nothing like it. Nothing like it. A thick boy crossing people up and hitting daggers. That's something that we need more of. So by all means, Luka, keep on eating. I mean, maybe balloon this thing up to 300 pounds. This isn't like a Zion Williamson situation where your game relies on explosiveness and you're just going to explode your knees if you keep eating like this. No, he doesn't really actually need a great deal of athleticism in his game. He's not known as a dunker or anything. He's all skill. So, yeah, balloon up, baby. Just get fat, get corpulent, and we're going to have ourselves a good time here in L.A. That's basically my thoughts on that. And Nico Harrison, what are you doing? What are you doing? I don't know what the... No justification makes sense on that. I'll just put it that way. No justification makes sense. We got some huge headlines in the NFL, though, so enough dilly-dallying in the NBA. Let's talk about the headlines here. Oh, yeah, by the way, De'Aaron Fox is on the Spurs, by the way. De'Aaron Fox and Wemby. Not a bad little duo. Might have to make some money off of that. NBA gambling's going well so far, folks. We've already been over the reasons why I can't put out picks on this podcast because of the time constraints. But just let me tell you, picks are going well, and I'll leave it at that. So first and foremost here in the NFL, the biggest news, I would say, I don't know where you rank him among players. I'd say he's the best pass rusher. TJ Watt would have something to say about that. I would counter by saying Myles Garrett's basically been alone his entire career. He had 1 year of okay Zadarius Smith, and what else is there to show for it? It's basically just been Myles Garrett with not a whole lot of help on the outside rushing opposite of him to take away from potential double teams. Myles Garrett's spectacular, and he just formally requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns. That happened, I believe, either today or yesterday. Either way, I think yesterday on this, the day this is coming out on Tuesday, that is when Myles Garrett formally requested a trade, put out a statement on social media. Every single insider put that thing out. So Myles Garrett's causing a stink, and he's trying to get the hell out of Dodge there. I would too if my quarterback was Deshaun Watson, and it seems like we're sticking with Deshaun Watson, even though he's going to miss the entirety of 2025, and he is a nasty, nasty, nasty man. Shout out Justin Tucker. 3 more massage therapists came out, by the way. That's a whole different story. I'm going to hold off some judgment on that. I don't know if I talked about it on this podcast, so we'll hit it here briefly. So Justin Tucker is alleged of misconduct with a variety of masseuses in the Baltimore area. He's banned from multiple salons. Some prophetic tweet from back in, I think 2020, 2021 did say that Justin Tucker was banned from multiple salons in the Baltimore area. So Tucker might be nasty too. He might be looking for a new job. Browns are in need of a kicker, by the way, so maybe history repeats itself on that one, but I digress. Early on in the lawsuit, man, I'm staying away from that. Especially, I'm working in legal now. I'm withholding judgment for now. However, the sheer volume of accusations. Also, I don't even think they filed a lawsuit. They just put out an article, so might be one to follow in the years to come, depending on how this thing goes, because there may be some litigation down the road if some things ultimately break Justin Tucker's way. We'll see how it plays out, though. It feels like that one's coming to an end there in Baltimore. Who would have thought? I mean, talk about a year ago. Justin Tucker, best kicker in the league. We're talking about best kicker of all time if he keeps going on this trajectory. Has a bad year this year, and then this comes out in the offseason. Now he's, I would say, probably not going to be on the Baltimore Ravens next year. We'll see if they stick it out. I mean, this would be nothing short of an anomaly for a kicker to get this kind of treatment. So we'll see. We'll absolutely see how it goes. But yeah, Myles Garrett, though, requesting a trade from the Cleveland Browns. Can't blame him for that. Poor Kevin Stefanski. Poor Andrew Berry. Your owner is a giant buffoon that for a few years there, he was doing well. He was staying out of the football operation. He recognized that he hired the right coach. He hired the right GM. Well, the GM hired the coach. But you get it. Hired 2 solid hires. He took his hands out of the pie and was just letting them run the football operation. And you saw that roster slowly build up to a point of making the playoffs last year as a result. But just that one time, That one time, Jimmy Haslam just couldn't help himself. He saw not even a distressed asset. He saw a franchise quarterback available, and he was fairly confident that his legal troubles were going to go away. And I don't think he paid a whole lot of mind to the victims in that situation. Just that one time he decided to butt his head in there, and it wasn't even like you got him at a distressed asset price. You paid 3 first-round picks for him, and then you threw in a $230 million fully guaranteed contract that is currently weighing on your neck like a 200-pound necklace at the moment. That is the one decision, and you're not going to convince me that was Andrew Berry. That's 100%. Andrew Berry's made entirely too many good decisions as a GM for me to believe that he just went out there all on his own volition, just went out there and got Deshaun Watson for that price. You're not going to convince me of it. Simply not going to do it. So, man, it's a tough situation for the Browns. We're talking about Myles Garrett here. Who cares about the Browns? All due respect to my Browns fans friends, there are a few of those, and my heart does go out to you. But yeah, you get it. You understand. I've talked to multiple Browns fans today that do understand why Myles Garrett did this, because you are a shit show. Now we're talking about destinations. You can basically eliminate the entirety of the AFC. Myles Garrett is the type of player that you do not trade within conference. If you want to talk about a recent example of this, look no further than A.J. Brown when he was traded from the Titans. And again, that's not really a decision that I would have done if I was the Titans GM. I don't think A.J. Brown necessarily wanted to leave Tennessee. But yeah, the GM there at that point, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, wanted to make a mark on the franchise, so he decided to trade away the second best player on the team behind Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now that is important, the Philadelphia Eagles being the destination. That's an NFC team. As an NFC team right there. Big-time players. You're talking like a player like Myles Garrett, certainly. You're not trying to see that guy outside of maybe once a year if the schedule guys don't look on you favorably. And then in the postseason, you're not trying to see that guy until the Super Bowl, if you have to see him at all. So that's why you trade that guy out of conference. So that's pretty much eliminate the entire AFC, unless Jimmy Haslam really does just continue to stick his fingers in the pie and force a trade somewhere where probably shouldn't force him to. Like if he goes to the Chiefs, my God, you can't do that. You absolutely can't do that. That'll haunt your reality for the next probably 5 to 7 years. I don't know how much juice that Myles Garrett has left in the tank, but he's still got enough to make your life hell for a good few years. That being said, NFC, realistically, what are the teams that we're looking at here? I think you can always kind of put the Eagles in the mix on that. Howie Roseman's been very aggressive, especially about pass rushers, of bringing in guys like this. So that's a guy that you got to watch out for. Eagles have salary cap concerns that I don't think will work out well for them in that case. 49ers, same thing. They could use him opposite of Nick Bosa, and that's a horrifying prospect of those two rushing opposite of each other. But again, salary cap situation. You got Brock Purdy's contract coming up. He's going to get paid $50 million a year at the very least, probably looking closer to 60 at this point. So you got to take that into account. And yeah, you just don't have the cap space. You still have to pay. Well, I guess Debo's being paid, but I guess you probably offload him this offseason. Ayuk, you just paid him. You can't really do much about that. Christian McCaffrey, we'll see what happens there. I'm not very optimistic about his future after he lost an entire season due to various injuries, multiple injuries. Body's starting to break down there. But yeah, 49ers probably don't have a whole lot of cap room. Seattle Seahawks, that's an interesting one. I could definitely see the Seahawks making a play there, especially because that's an area that you probably still need a couple other things, particularly offensive line, if you really want to make a deep push. But Myles Garrett takes you that next level. He gives you a bookend edge rusher that you can trust. If you need a sack, or at the very least you need a pressure, he's going to move the quarterback off the spot. He's going to make that throw as hard as possible, if not get the sack in the process. He's that type of player. Great guy to pair opposite of Uchenna Nwosu. Uchenna Nwosu, not a number one pass rusher, but if he's your number two, you can do a whole lot worse than that. So that's one team to watch there. I mean, outside of that, I'm thinking off the top of my head, Detroit Lions, always put them in this conversation, especially with Aiden Hutchinson coming back. You put Aiden Hutchinson and Myles Garrett on the same football team, that's nightmares. That's absolute nightmares. Still got some things to figure out defensively with the turnover on the defensive staff. Obviously, Aaron Glenn, the head coach of the New York Jets now. But you got a great starting point that you have not had in my entire lifetime, frankly, if you bring in Myles Garrett there to rush opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. Packers, that just simply won't happen. Bears probably won't either. That's not really their style for the most part, but never know. Ryan Poles has made some aggressive moves in the name of winning. So they do have a rookie quarterback contract. They do have some cap to spend. We'll see where they go with it. Frankly, I think they've got bigger issues than just the pass rush there, more immediate issues, but if you can get a number one pass rusher, maybe the best pass rusher in the entire league, you absolutely do that. So I could see that happening. Outside of that, Cowboys not happening. Commies are an interesting one, but I see them more in the market for a receiver. Doesn't mean that they can't go elsewhere with it as well. Maybe you go T. Higgins in free agency and bring in Myles Garrett on the trade market. That could happen, but I kind of see him keying in on one area to get the number one guy, and then another area to kind of fill in with very good players. So maybe not necessarily elite guys on both sides, but that'd be very exciting for the commies on that front. The NFC South, no. Maybe the Buccaneers, but otherwise, no, not contenders. Hey, just throwing this out there. Is there a reason why I put this team last? You tell me. But there's a team in Minneapolis, Minnesota, that was held back defensively at times by not having an elite edge rusher. And they were still a great unit without that. They absolutely shut down the Lions at points despite what the score said late, just because the offense didn't do them any favors whatsoever. You bring in a pass rusher like Myles Garrett, you pair him opposite of Jonathan Grenard, buddy, you might not have to rush more than 4 ever again. I mean, especially if you find a way to bring in a quality defensive tackle in the middle there. Love was Will Redmond, I think, in the interior. Undrafted guy coming out of the UFL. Love him, but we're going to need some more bodies on top of that. You got yourself a unit there. And that's not even factoring in Andrew Van Ginkel, who had himself a hell of a season last year. He just kind of bumps into a bit more of a joker role. You can put him in a NASCAR package, and all of a sudden, you got the best third down pass rush in the entire league. At the very least, you probably have the best 1-2 in the entire league of pass rushers between Myles Garrett and Jonathan Grenard. Listen, I saw this floated, and I'm going to credit him, Will Ragats. I don't know how to pronounce your name. I've never heard it pronounced out loud. I apologize if I completely butchered it there. But Will, my boy Will, who I've been following for a long time, been on the Vikings beat for the Athletic for quite some minute, although I don't know if he's still at the Athletic, but I digress on that front. He's been on the Vikings beat for a minute. When this was first broken, the Myles Garrett news, he brought out a fascinating point here. So he said, he asked the question, would you give up Dallas Turner and a third-round pick for Myles Garrett? Now, my first reaction is, I don't think that's quite enough. I think you're getting there. I think you're right on the cusp, but I don't think that's quite enough for next year. Now, just throwing this out there, you up that pick to the first-round pick, I don't even give a shit about that first-round pick. I'm going to be quite honest with you. If we're trading Dallas Turner in that first-round pick for Myles Garrett, I'm counting Myles Garrett as that first-round pick. And That's a first-round pick well spent if you're bringing in a possible Defensive Player of the Year. And make no mistake about it, he's got a real shot at winning Defensive Player of the Year if he finds his way in Brian Flores' system. Don't make no mistake about it. He would be special on the Vikings. I can tell you that right now. I want him bad. And I think Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, this is not the only piece, but this could be the piece when push comes to shove that puts the Vikings over the top, if you can bring this one in. Now, this is a long shot. Lots of suitors. I just laid out a bunch of them there for you. But I'm telling you, I'm telling you right now, if the Vikings end up landing Myles Garrett, Super Bowl contenders next year, J.J. McCarthy just has to be average. The defense will be elite. There are things to figure out. Do not get me wrong. But I trust Brian Flores, and when you got a stable of pass rushers like that would end up being, it's exciting. It's absolutely exciting, and I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated to see where this goes, because no matter what, this is going to be an altering of the landscape in the league depending on where Myles Garrett goes. I think he will go to a contender. I think the contenders will be paying the top dollar for his services. So that's a keystone move coming this offseason. I would expect things to materialize on that. So I'll put it this way. I think it likely happens before free agency opens here. When is that? Like end of February, beginning of March, sometime in there. I think beginning of March is where the free agency starts. So I think it gets done before then. If it does not get done before then, I think it's going to be a minute, because then I think teams are going to see how free agency plays out, what players they can get, and then once they kind of get a good idea of what their free agency class looks like, then we can revisit the Myles Garrett's proposition there. Otherwise, you're spending just too many man hours, too much intellectual capital on a Myles Garrett trade when you can be improving your team in other ways along the way. So that's kind of the way I see it going. I expect it to probably get done before the new league year. But ultimately, and it won't be finalized until the new league year. I don't know if they can actually do that yet before. I don't know. That's beyond my pay grade at this point. But just keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on that. That's gonna be very interesting to watch this offseason. That is not the only trade, not even trade requests. We're talking a reversal of roles from the previous story. Actually, the Rams informed Cooper Kupp that they will be shopping him this offseason, and this one was not quite as unexpected as Myles Garrett. You saw a decline in play from Cooper Kupp. The Rams tried to shop Cooper Kupp at the deadline. I honestly thought that he might be a cut candidate. I haven't looked at his contract details. I know he's got a $20 hit for next year. So actually, I should look that up right now. Un momento, por favor. Okay, let's see what we got here. Okay, what are we looking at? So in 2025. So no matter what, you're taking $22 million dead. You would save $7 million if you cut Cooper Kupp pre-June 1, which is what we would expect at this point, unless you do a post-June 1 designation, which at that point, saving another $8 million, but you're kicking that can down the road to next year. So might want to eat that a little bit, though this is a young roster, so I don't know how much of that you really want to do. But that's kind of what the cap looks like. I think he finds a home. I don't think this is a situation where he's going to be languishing, waiting for the right suitor to come along. I think there is a couple teams that are wide receiver needy. I'm thinking specifically about so the Houston Texans, for sure. Probably need a third guy outside of Nico Collins, Tank Dell. Who's to say what Tank Dell looks like coming off of that gruesome knee injury at the end of the season? So that's a spot for him. If you want to stay in the conference, I mean, the Commies are looking for a wide receiver right now. They're probably going to be the top spender for a guy like T. Higgins. They could also ball out and go get Cooper Kupp, although I don't know what the compensation is going to be for Cooper Kupp at this point. And I have less of an idea of where Kupp might end up than I feel about Myles Garrett. There's less obvious options, I suppose. But he will find a spot. I think he ends up getting traded. I don't know if he's altogether worth the amount of money that you're going to ultimately end up paying him this season. I think if he goes to the right system, the right quarterback, I think he still has juice left in the tank. He is in the twilight of his career, though, so let's temper the expectations a little bit. He might have one more explosion year left in him. Just new environment, new place, new play style, all that sort of stuff. But I don't know. I think he ends up somewhere. Texans feel like the most likely because they're out of conference, but who knows what they're willing to spend. Nick Caserio will have something to say about that. He's had no bones about being aggressive in the past. You saw him trade up to back-to-back picks 2 years ago for C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson at 2 and 3 in the 2023 draft, I believe it was. 2023 draft. That was exciting. That was electric. We reacted to that. That was fun. That was fun. Big Brass Balls Award. That's sitting right on Nick Caserio's desk. Never forget it. Never forget it. I'll tell you what. But yeah, I expect that to happen. We'll see where it ends up. I'd love for him to go to. I would love for him to go to the Commies. I just don't think it'll happen. Don't think it'll happen. Texans could be fun though. They just got a new offensive coordinator. We're going to talk about that here in just a second. But we have got more offensive coordinator news on a couple different fronts. So first off, Chip Kelly leaving OSU, Ohio State, for the uninitiated there. He will be the new Raiders offensive coordinator under Pete Carroll. So Pete Carroll's staff fully comes together. They retain Patrick Graham, which they must think just the complete worst that you could possibly think of that personnel group on the defensive side of the ball for Patrick Graham to still have his job. It's incredible. I don't know if this is Jim Irsay keeping Gus Bradley around for a while sort of situation, longer than he should have been there or what. Patrick Graham has survived 3 regimes. He's survived 3 regimes now. He came in with Josh McDaniels, I'm pretty sure. Then he stuck around for the year of Antonio Pierce. Now he's sticking around for Pete Carroll. This guy must be a wizard in the room, man. He must be an all-time vibes guy, because that's a hell of a gig. That's a hell of a gig as far as job security is concerned, but I digress. I'm interested to see what Chip Kelly does. I think he was inconsistent at times at Ohio State last year. I don't know. I think he can still coordinate a hell of a run game, which is what the Raiders need. We'll see. I mean, they're going to have to bring in another running back in the draft. Their backfield is one of the worst in the entire league right now, and that's not sugarcoating it. That's absolute stone cold facts that you need to hear. Your backfield sucks right now. It needs to be better. So I expect them to address that in the draft. Excuse me. We'll see if they bring in someone in free agency. Not a fantastic class of free agents. I don't see Najee Harris getting big money. It would be funny if they just doubled up on Alexander Madison and Najee Harris. Just full on physical football, lowest yards per carry that you can possibly muster up. That's what we're looking for here in Las Vegas. I don't see him going that direction, though. It's probably a draft situation where maybe you're looking at Travion Henderson. Maybe you're looking at Quinshon Judkins. Who's to say? Who's to say who is available there? You got 2 pretty damn good ones coming out in the draft this year. So something to look forward to. Probably not altogether uncorrelated. I would assume that Pete Carroll, being a national championship winning head coach in the college ranks at USC, still follows college football fairly closely. I think he's probably a football junkie like you and me out there. So that's exciting stuff for the Raiders. I still love that hire. I love Pete Carroll as a hire. I trust him here. had an inconsistent record of getting offensive coordinators, but I think this is a good one here, especially assuming you're going to bring in a rookie quarterback in there. You're in a good spot. You're in a good spot right now. So we'll see where it goes. John Spytek, Pete Carroll off to a running start. A running start there in Las Vegas. Okay, so we got a couple more headlines here. Told y'all, by the way. I told y'all this was going to happen. Ryan Grubb is joining Kalen DeBoer's staff once again to resume his role as offensive coordinator, this time at Alabama. He was there for a month. Last season, not even really there for a month. He was really just there for a week or so. I mean, had a cup of coffee, then immediately turned the moving truck around and went back to Seattle to be the Seahawks offensive coordinator. Probably better for him to go back to the college ranks. He was pretty disappointing, unfortunately, at the NFL level. Got fired after 1 year. And I'll tell you this right now, he's not going to skip a beat in college. He is a demon of drawing out plays. I don't know who the Alabama quarterback's going to be. Maybe that quarterback's not even on the roster. I know they brought in, transfer-wise last season, they brought in, I forget the guy's name. He was recruited to Washington by Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer, followed Kalen DeBoer to Alabama. So that may be your heir apparent there. Maybe you give Ty Simpson a go, though if he was going to be the quarterback, he would have taken that job at this point. It was pretty wide open over the course of the last 2 seasons. So turnovers probably still an issue. Outside of that, I don't really know where you go. Maybe the quarterback is not on their roster, though. We'll see. Maybe they can sweet talk Quinn Ewers into coming on over and dancing. You know, seeing what we got left in the tank. Though at this point, the spring portal window, I think you have to sit out if you're in the SEC if you enter the spring portal window. So, bit of a loophole there. Ohio State's still in play, though. Just saying. But yeah, Ohio State now. They are, did I just go backwards on that? Did I just go backwards? Yeah, I did just go backwards. But Ohio State, replacing both coordinators, Jim Knowles now at Penn State, Chip Kelly now in the NFL with the Raiders. Big swings. Expect big swings. Dominoes will fall from this because I would expect them to poach someone's G5 head coach for this job. Just saying. I'm warning you right now. I'm just saying that's... If you're Ohio State, that's what you do. That's what Alabama just did last year. So good of Alabama to go back to Ryan Grubb instead of taking someone's head coach this time around. But I love this move. I think the running game is going to be better by default. The passing game, we'll see what happens at the quarterback situation, but I think better than last year. Nick Sheridan, just a little bit early for him. Okay, he got some good experience last year. Ups, downs. Some unfortunate downs for sure, but now Ryan Grubb takes back over. He's a good coordinator. I'll tell you what, he's going to have no problems in the SEC, I don't think. His only limiting factor is going to be the quarterback because he'll have an offensive line. The recruiting pipeline at running back, I have no questions about it. Wide receiver, they're bringing in a 5-star this coming season in Caleb Cunningham out of Ackerman, Mississippi. Really wanted him to go to Mississippi State, but I can understand why you didn't, kid. Maybe we'll catch you in the transfer portal this time next year if Mississippi State goes to a bowl, but that's asking a lot. That's asking a lot for a 2-10 team last year, so I digress. But yeah, as far as the talent is concerned, I got no questions whatsoever. Ryan Grubb's going to have everything that he needs to work with everything. Quarterback, we'll see what happens, but the quarterback is going to be put in the best situation possible for him to be successful. So I would be excited about that if I was an Alabama fan. I would expect a big year, too, for Kalen DeBoer. I still maintain they put together a hell of a coaching staff. Just had a rough year one. Your first year transitioning out of Saban, trying to instill your own culture, there's some growing pains that go with that, but I think year 2 is going to be pretty damn good for Kalen DeBoer, and I would expect the preseason rankings to reflect that. That being said, one last headline. The Texans, the aforementioned Texans, are now hiring Rams tight end coach Nick Caley as their new offensive coordinator, so he will replace the outgoing Bobby Slowick. Little bit of a not the Shanahan scheme necessarily. It's a West Coast offense, so it's all kind of under that Bill Walsh and then Kyle Shanahan, Andy Reid sort of tree that kind of branches out there. The Rams scheme, a little bit different than the 49ers scheme, though. A little bit augmented from what the 49ers do. They got their own kind of stuff going on. So they use a little bit less fullback, which I think is kind of more suited to what they're trying to do. I don't know a damn thing about Nick Caley. I'm not going to lie to you. I know a couple things about Sean McVay's offense. I know good run game, which they need badly. They're going to have to coordinate around some offensive line deficiencies unless they can spend big in free agency this year, and even then, not a guarantee. But as far as what they got in place right now, I'll be interested to see what Nick Caley does with that, because I have no idea what to think about the guy. It feels like the Rams head coaching staff, or just the offensive coaching staff, one, Sean McVay continues to maintain his level of excellence offensively, no matter who leaves the building, regardless of brain drain. It's actually incredible. Outside of that, though, you look at the guys that have left the Rams organization, pretty good hit rate as far as success goes. I mean, we're talking about so Kevin O'Connell, Cincinnati Bengals head coach, whose name escapes me right now. Why can I not remember his name? That's embarrassing. But the Cincinnati Bengals head coach, who I still can't remember off the top of my head. They're a forgettable team, so that's my fault. That's my fault. But yeah, you got Kevin O'Connell, you got him, that guy, Liam Cohen. Now all three of those head coaches, and that's not even talking about Zach Robinson, up and down first year with the Falcons. I wasn't overly impressed with what he did, but solid coordinator there so far. Okay coordinator there so far with the Atlanta Falcons. A lot of footprints all over the league for that Rams offensive coaching staff, which is impressive. It is impressive. So not a bad hit rate. Not a bad hit rate. If you're going to swing on one staff, Sean McVay's is not a bad one to go with. Better hit rate than what's coming off of the 49ers staff. No offense to the 49ers staff. I do think DeMeco Ryans is a solid head coach. Just we'll forget about the Robert Saleh era. Back with the 49ers, by the way. I don't know if I ever mentioned that, but he's sneaky back with the 49ers, and I think that was a great hire by them. That being said, that's it for the headlines. So, real quick, let's get a time check. Get a quick time check here. So we're 37 minutes in, almost 38 minutes in. Give or take a few minutes, just because had some time when it was recording before, just kind of getting things together. But let me swig this real quick, then we'll get into the Super Bowl here, and I'm gonna hand out a pick. I'm not betting it publicly, but I'm handing out a pick, and I don't feel good about it at all. Don't feel good about it at all. But we're gonna get to that in a second. Let me swig this. Woo! Thirsty boy. Thirsty boy. Just worked out, biked 11 miles before this podcast. Your boy's legs are about to be fucking jello when I get up. That's a promise from me to you out there right now. Big things happening at the at all levels right now. We're getting jacked we're getting shredded even in 2025. That's my promise to no one. Legally speaking, I'm obligated to not do that, because I could back out at any moment. But for right now, it's going well. That being said, enough about my workout talk. No one gives a shit about your workout routine. No one does. Unless you can tell they're into working out, don't even broach the subject. Just my advice from me to you, as I blatantly break that advice, and I apologize for that. That being said, we have got a Super Bowl on our hands. It is a rematch of the 2023 variety here. We have got, excuse me, I had to clear my throat, the Kansas City Chiefs, the 1 seed in the AFC, the team that has felt inevitable for the last 2 seasons, 3 seasons if you count this season up until this final game. Unstoppable force. And of course, we've got the Philadelphia Eagles, who it bore out down the stretch of the season. The Vikings, obviously, paper tiger, because their quarterback it wilted like a dying leaf in the postseason. disgusting performances from Sam Darnold derailed the Vikings season, and that's just unfortunate. You hate to see that. But with the attrition from the Lions as well, the Eagles were clearly the cream of the crop. They might have been the cream of the crop the whole time, even without the deficiencies that popped up for the Lions and the ones that were inherent for the Vikings that were just not quite as visible throughout the course of the season. So I would say we got the right matchup here in the Super Bowl. We have got a dandy, folks, and I hope this is a great game. I really do. It would be a great way to end off the season. I am less excited about the Super Bowl commercials than ever. Really, it's been a downward decline of my excitement for Super Bowl commercials since I was probably, since I watched my first football game. The point of diminishing returns on the Super Bowl commercials is immediate. I mean, it just happens like that. Just over time, with each successive year, you're like, I don't give a fuck about these more and more and more. You start off like very excited, and then by the time you're about, for me, it was probably around 18, I would say. Didn't take me real long. I was like, okay, I don't give a shit about these Super Bowl commercials anymore. I'm open to being pleasantly surprised. Out of principle, I will stick around during most of the commercials. But that being said, I don't like this shit anymore. And now I'm at a point as an adult, almost 30-year-old man. I don't even give a shit. I'll get up. I'll go to the bathroom. I'm not holding my water just to watch some stupid advertising in front of my face. So I'm gonna go do I'm gonna go get some snacks. I don't really care. I'm treating every commercial break like the halftime show, because I'm probably not watching that either. No, I might watch it this year with Kendrick Lamar. All this has nothing to do with the Super Bowl, and I'm gonna fix that right now. So, you know how we do this thing. We're going matchups, one side of the ball versus the other side of the ball. So why not start with the Kansas City Chiefs offense versus the Philadelphia Eagles defense? Frankly, I think this is where the game is going to be won or lost for these teams. I think whoever wins this matchup here between the KC offense and the Philadelphia Eagles defense wins the Super Bowl, in my mind. So you got a great Kansas City offensive line. Really, really good offensive line. Joe Thuney bumps out the tackle, immediate All-Pro. That's Hall of Fame stamp right there. I'm not understating that either. I mean, he probably was already going to be in the Hall of Fame. You bump out to tackle and immediately become an All-Pro in year one just because the team needed you to do it because the tackles that were incumbent were terrible. That's a Hall of Famer right there. That's a stamp, a rubber stamp, and you can do whatever you want for the rest of your career. The fact that you just did that, that's nothing short of impressive. And then on the other side, you got the Eagles' defensive line, which is just a pack of wild dogs. I mean, they still got all those pass rushers minus Hassan Reddick. They still are doing great. I mean, Nolan Smith stepped up big time in Hassan Reddick's absence. Josh Sweat still coming off the edge. The ageless Brandon Graham coming off of the edge, and he's coming back from IR, by the way. That's huge news. That's huge news for the Super Bowl. You knew he wasn't going to miss the Super Bowl, man, and what may be the last game of his career. We'll see how it all goes here, but we're on a year-to-year basis with Brandon Graham. I would not be shocked at all if he called it quits after this game. And of course, I didn't even mention him yet. Jalen Carter. You don't even have to mention Jordan Davis because Jalen Carter is a freak. I mean, maybe the best defensive tackle in the entire league right now. He's right up there with Chris Jones. It's not an unreasonable argument to say that Jalen Carter is every bit as good as Chris Jones. I hesitate to say better because that's my boy. Stone Cold's my boy, man. We went to college at the same time. I watched him live on the field from the front row at Davis Wade Stadium, ringing a cowbell. Some of the fondest memories of my life were watching that boy play some damn good football at Mississippi State. So you will never hear a bad word from me about Chris Jones. That's my best defensive tackle in the league. But I'm saying Jalen Carter has himself a hell of an argument there on the other side of things. So that's the big matchup on the interior. And this worries me for the Kansas City Chiefs because the interior of that offensive line, Joe Thuney is spectacular. Let's not get it wrong here. But him bumping out to the outside does create a bit of a problem when you're talking about an interior pass rusher, the level of Jalen Carter. That's something that would scare me if I were the Chiefs. I assume Andy Reid has something in store for that. I would assume a lot of pass protection and a lot of inside pass support. Probably not a whole lot of help on the outside, which could be its own problem as it comes along. But I would expect a healthy amount of help, at least double teams on the interior for Jalen Carter, and then maybe you can get the outside pressure from there as the back. I would expect a lot of maybe not max protect, but back staying in to help with the blocking to give Patrick Mahomes a little bit of time. Give him a chance to buy some more time if need be. But then you look on the outside, and it hasn't necessarily mattered here over the last couple of years, really, just the last 2 seasons for the Kansas City Chiefs. There's a clear, decided advantage for the Philadelphia Eagles secondary over the Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver corps, though. I mean, flat out. There's no other way to frame it. I mean, you got Darius Slay, who is not the Darius Slay of old, but still a solid player. And you've got 2 super rookies right now. Nailed your first 2 draft picks there in Quinion Mitchell, Quinyonamo Bay, that is, and Cooper DeJean, who is a ballin'-ass white boy. And we love to see ballin'-ass white boys. The DEI program in Iowa does it again. Does it again, my friends. Iowa City is popping right now with DEI cornerbacks. Cooper DeJean is just the latest one, probably the best one so far. He's a really, really good player. And then, of course, got another ball-and-ass white boy on the back end with Reed, Blankenship. Not even to mention the linebackers. Obviously, not having Nakobe Dean is a problem. I would expect a healthy dose of Travis Kelce in this game, especially since it's the Super Bowl. Not holding anything back now. Now is the time for those 2 to shine. So I would expect that. I would expect him to be very involved in the game plan, especially with not having Nakobe Dean to cover him. CJ Gardner-Johnson, that's going to be a huge matchup for him. I just think personnel-wise, if you just take the quarterback out of it, matchups-wise, the Eagles have a decided advantage on the outside. The problem is you're facing off against Patrick Mahomes, and things don't always work out the way that they look like on paper when you're playing against Patrick Mahomes in a Super Bowl at that. And I don't give a damn what the score is. I don't care how many points were scored previously. You give 15 a minute 30 left. Doesn't matter the amount of timeouts. You give them a minute 30 left. Does not really matter how much you have to go on the field. If it's a 1-score game and Patrick Mahomes has the ball in his hands, you are going to lose. I don't care what the matchups are. I do not care where your advantages lie. If you give that man the ball and it is a 1-score game in either direction, and it's basically, this is a do or die possession, to call it under 2 minutes left, really, any time whatsoever left, and you give Patrick Mahomes the ball, you are going to lose the game. It is borne out again and again and again and again throughout the course of Patrick Mahomes' career. It would behoove Philadelphia to make the situation untenable for Patrick Mahomes. They're going to have to get big-time pressure on him. I don't think they're going to have a whole lot of trouble stopping the run, frankly. I think they have a decided advantage in the run. I don't think the Chiefs' running game has been all that good. They've been relying a lot on Kareem Hunt. Isaiah Pacheco's not been very good this year. The interior of the offensive line's not getting pushed like it had the last couple of years. I don't think they have the closeout running game like they've had over the course of the last several seasons. I mean, you just saw last game, they had to make a concerted effort to involve Patrick Mahomes in the running game just so they could get some degree of yards on the ground. They just couldn't get it otherwise. I don't think the Eagles are going to have a whole lot of trouble stopping the run. The problem is you got to get Patrick Mahomes on the ground. You have got to get him uncomfortable. You got to move him off his spot, and you got to finish the job. At the very least, you got to hit him while he is throwing, because if he gets it off clean, whether he's on the move or not, it's bad news for you. 100 times out of 100. Even if it's an incomplete pass, you're holding your breath the entire time that ball is in the air. So it's going to behoove the Philadelphia Eagles to come out here and get Patrick Mahomes on his ass, because if they don't do it, I have a hard time seeing them win this game. That's the bottom line right there. This is where the game is probably going to be won right here. That being said, on the other side of the ball, looking at the Philadelphia Eagles offense, Kansas City Chiefs defense. Offensive defensive line, man, it's about a stalemate, if not an advantage to the Eagles. Eagles just year after year. I don't know what Jeff Stoutland's being paid. Jeff Stoutland being the offensive line coach for the Philadelphia Eagles, of course. I don't know what he's being paid. He needs to be paid double, whatever he's being paid. And the Eagles need to keep him around forever, because that's their secret weapon to any degree of success, is the fact that they're just plug and play on the offensive line. There's been an organizational philosophy built around this offensive line, offensive and defensive line, just lines of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. It's not rocket science. It's not a new formula either. It's maybe they're approaching it in a different way. They're relying more on pass rushers this time around, but it's a formula as old as football on the offensive side of the ball. You get a damn good offensive line, I would say even the best offensive line in the league, you're going to go to the playoffs and you're going to have a chance of winning a championship, because there is no better correlator in the entire league. I mean, we're talking defensive line, cornerbacks, wide receivers, running backs, all of that. There is no bigger correlator in my mind to whether a team is a contender or not than the level of that team's offensive line. If you're telling me a team has a top 5 offensive line, I'm showing you a championship contender right there. If you're showing me a team with a middle-of-the-road offensive line, I'm showing you a team that's going 8-9, 9-8. If they're at the bottom end of the spectrum, well, look no further than the New York Giants. Need I say more? You all know the situation there for the last decade plus in New York with the offensive line, so I digress on that front. That's what excites me about the Eagles here in this matchup. I don't know if they have a decided advantage. I mean, I'm telling you now, I mean, Chris Jones, George Karlaftis, Charles Omenihu making big-time contributions there now. A belated contributions, but still big-time contributions for him. Nick Bolton, really solid secondary there as well. But that's besides the point. We're talking front seven. I think they can make it not embarrassing with the Eagles' running game. I do think the Eagles win, though. I do think the Eagles win that matchup. And when you got Saquon Barkley running behind you, and really, the untalked about story here, and the Eagles haven't really gotten enough flack for it, they don't have a fantastic run defense in this game, or in this season overall. I mean, they're okay. They're not fantastic defending the run. And when you're going up against the best running back in the entire league, behind the best offensive line in the entire league, that's a problem in my mind. I think the Eagles, I don't think they're going to have to pass a whole lot. I think Saquon is in for a huge game in this one. I really do. And I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to have to load the box and force Jalen Hurts to beat him, which he's shown a willingness to do in the past. We'll see if he can do that in this spot, but that feels like what's going to be the move for KC, because I don't see it. Basically, if you let Saquon run wild, you lose this game, so you got to sell out resources to stop Saquon Barkley. I expect 7-8 man boxes. You're going to get one-on-one opportunities on the outside with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. If Jalen Hurts can hit a couple of those for long touchdowns, maybe just one or two of those for long plays, at least one going for a long touchdown, that could be a decided advantage for the Eagles as well. This is a tough matchup for the KC defense, especially when I just talked about those receivers. Didn't even mention Dallas Goedert in that whole equation as well. Who do you match up with Dallas Goedert? I don't know that you have a great option if you're the Chiefs matching up with Dallas Goedert at this point. I mean, maybe you put Justin Reed on him. He's a solid enough player, but Dallas Goedert been underrated for quite some time, playing at the height of his powers right now. He's really a very, very good tight end. And then on the outside, I mean, the Chiefs have very good corners and a really, really good defensive coordinator. That's the saving grace here, is Steve Spagnuolo is a fantastic offensive coordinator. But personnel-wise, they've got a little bit of a disadvantage there on the outside, especially with that 1-2 in Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. Not in that order. A.J. Brown is better. Let's not get it twisted here. But maybe the best 1-2 punch at wide receiver in the entire NFL. I mean, come on. I mean, that not really, but still, one of the best 1-2 punches at wide receiver in the entire NFL right now. That's not, like I said, I maintain that the other side of the ball is where the game is going to be won. But I'm telling you, man, it's either going to be Saquon Barkley running wild, or Jalen Hurts is going to have to make a couple big plays and earn a Super Bowl MVP in order to get this thing done. I would say, because I don't know. It just depends on how the Chiefs kind of approach this. Knowing Steve Spagnuolo, it'll be something creative, but that's going to be interesting to see. I think the Eagles have a bit of an advantage on that side of the ball, if for no other reason than that run defense is a bit of a worry for me if I'm the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, so holistically, we went through the entire thing there. Didn't even mention Harrison Butker, but if it comes down to a kicker's duel, point to the Chiefs on that one, because Harrison Butker is probably taking the crown as best kicker in the entire league, with the fall off of Justin Tucker. I mean the meteoric fall off. I don't know why we talk about meteoric rises. Meteors fall from the sky, folks. I don't know who needs to hear this, but meteors fall from the sky. So meteoric plummet is what Justin Tucker had. Harrison Butker, probably the best kicker in the entire league at this point. Jake Elliott, struggling right now. Historically very good in the postseason, but struggling down the stretch of the season and missed some extra points in the postseason. So it would behoove Philadelphia to win big in this one. And that's why I can't bet this game, but I'm doing a pick, because otherwise it's just no fun. I don't want to be a Grinch on this whole thing. So with that said, I came into this whole thing thinking one thing, and man, I don't even know, man. I really don't know. But offensive and defensive line matter. I think they matter the most of any positions on the football field. Again, biggest correlators to success in my mind. And I just think the Philadelphia Eagles have an advantage on both sides of the ball with their counterpart, especially defensively. I think they have a really big advantage on the inside, with that inside pass rush, and Jalen Carter in particular. Give me the Eagles to win, man. I think they obviously they cover if they win, but I'm taking them to win. It's a -1.5 point line in the favor of Kansas City right now. I'm taking the dogs at +1.5. We are not betting it, but that is my pick in this game. I think Saquon Barkley comes out, has multiple touchdowns. Who knows what the yardage looks like, but I think the Eagles find a way to get it done. I think with that offensive scenario, I think either the Chiefs load the box, kind of bottle up Saquon a little bit, and Jalen Hurts makes big plays down the field, and Saquon Barkley punches it in, or vice versa. Maybe Jalen Hurts goes off in this game. Who's to say? Or Chiefs don't commit enough resources to the box. Saquon Barkley runs wild. It's night-night. That's how I feel offensively. And I think defensively, you just need 1 or 2 turnovers. That's all you need. And I think the Eagles can do that. They're an aggressive defense. I think that pass rush can win in this game. I think Jalen Carter is huge. Most important player on the defense normally. Specifically in this game, you need Jalen Carter to have the type of game that he had in the NFC Championship game. You need him to haunt Patrick Mahomes' nightmares when he goes to bed at night after the Super Bowl. That's how you win this game. I think the Eagles do it. I think they win it and bring one home to Philadelphia. I'm sure that that city would react rationally. No matter what, we're going to get a purely just psychotic reaction from the Philadelphia faithful. Whether they win or lose, the city might burn down. Hey, grease up the polls, my friend. Grease up the polls, because you're going to have some real Philly scumbags trying to climb up those things. Just word to the wise. You might want to be pre-greasing them now here on Tuesday, if you're listening to this. To the poll greasers out there in Philadelphia, PA, if you're listening, start now. Start now. Get some grease on the polls now while you got time, because time is ticking. Time is ticking. That being said, I think we're going to wrap it up there. I appreciate you all listening to this week's edition of Unqualified Analysis. We'll be back next week to recap the Super Bowl and propel ourselves into the offseason. Why don't we take a look back at the recklessly early predictions from preseason, huh? What Hey, put in the oven for 9 months. We got ourselves a recklessly early predictions, baby. And I can tell you right now, there are a few that are bad. Really, really bad. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to laughing at myself and providing you guys some entertainment along the way. But until then, thank you so much for tuning into Unqualified Analysis. We do this thing once a week in the off season. We got twice a week during the regular season. But hey, that's quite a whiles away, man. Quite a ways away. And you know what? It's always a bittersweet moment at the end of football season, but man, it's good. I'm looking forward to this Super Bowl. We're savoring this moment right now. I'm looking forward to this Super Bowl. Anyways, you can follow me on the socials at CalebVUA. Shoot me a DM there if you want to contribute, opine in any way, shape, or form. Just slide in the DMs. They're open. So fuck it. Could be a mistake at some point, but for now, we're going to see what happens. Email unqualifiedanalysis@gmail.com. Haven't checked that in an incredibly long time at this point. So could be a problem. Is what it is, I suppose. But yeah, outside of that, share this thing. Help me get this thing growing. But yeah, as always, I've got just about no clue what I'm talking about. But thank you for listening. Got that all out of whack on that one. That being said, one thing that I learned this week. I'll be honest with you, I slacked pretty much a lot on this past week. As far as things that I learned, I didn't learn a whole lot. To be honest, not a whole lot of learning that got done this past week. I didn't listen to a whole lot of history podcasts. I mean, let me see if I just got one in the tank. I mean, couldn't hurt to check. Nope, I said that one last week. That's fucking terrible. What's a fun fact, man? I'm chock full of these sumbitches. Problem is I shared them all on the show, which is, man, not great foresight. Not great foresight. Fuck. I feel like I learned some good facts this week. I just can't remember them off the top of my head. They're buried in my subconscious somewhere, just ready to be associative memory recalled whenever I need them. Wish I could have recalled them now, but we're just going to keep drawing this out. I mean, we're going to make this as awkward as humanly possible, you and me. Man, yeah, couldn't find one. Yeah, sorry about that. I'll be better next week. I promise. That's my promise to me and you. We're going to stock up on fun facts this week. That's not going to happen for at least another couple months. It's probably going to happen again at some point, but at least another couple of months, we're going to be good to go on the fun facts here. So yeah, thank you all for tuning in. I apologize for being a disgrace there at the end, but hope you enjoyed. I'll see y'all next Tuesday to talk about the Super Bowl. Take it easy.